Hello, today we are going to talk about properties. We've actually already discussed one property, the distributive property, earlier this school year. If you've forgotten about the distributive property, please feel free to stop this video and rewatch the distributive property, and then please come back and watch this video on the rest of the properties. There's actually 4 remaining properties that we're going to get into today. But first, just to be clear, a property is a rule that applies to all numbers. So that means regardless if it's a fraction, a decimal, or an integer, if it is a property or a rule, it will work for all number types. And there's actually 4 remaining properties that we need to discuss. The first is the identity property. The second, property of 0. Third is the associative property, followed by the fourth, commutative property. So, the first property that we're going to discuss in detail is the identity property. The big idea about the identity property is simply this. You will start and end an equation with the same value. So whatever number you started the equation with, if you are showing the identity property, you will end with that same value. This property works for addition as well as multiplication. The identity property of addition says that you will simply add 0. By adding 0 to any number, you will start and end with the same value. So regardless if it's a fraction or a whole number or a decimal, if you are adding 0 to it, what you start with is what you end with. Another way of thinking about this property is any number plus 0 is equal to that number. And the same rule applies for multiplication, except you would multiply by 1. Any number times 1 is that number. And again, regardless if it's a fraction, a decimal, or a whole number, any number times 1 is equal to that number. Okay, the next property that we were going to talk about is the property of 0. Pretty much the big idea is simply any number times 0 is 0. So this is a property you've known for a while. You just may not have known it had a proper name. And it does. It's called the property of 0. So whether it's a whole number, a fraction, a decimal, even an integer, a negative integer, any number times 0 equals 0. Next, we have the associative property. The big idea about the associative property involves changing groups. And what the associative property says is that when you have numbers that you're adding or multiplying, if we had A plus B in a group, and we come over here, now we have B plus C in a group, what the associative property says is that it doesn't matter if we add A and B together and then C, or B and C together and then A, both sides will be equal to each other. And the same thing applies with multiplication. It doesn't matter if we multiply A and B and then C, or B and C and then A. So again, the big aha there is that with the associative property, you change groups by changing the parentheses. If you notice, A and B were in a group, then B and C were in a group. Let's substitute some values in. Let's say A is 1, B is 2, and C is 3. Again, A is 1, B is 2, and C is 3. If we follow our order of operations, we would add 1 plus 2 first to get 3 plus 3, which we all know is 6. But let's come over here and see if the other side also equals 6. You would put the parentheses around B and C. 2 plus 3 is 5. And then add the 1. So as you see, it doesn't matter if you add A and B first and then C, or B and C first and then A, both sides equal 6. And this is a property that also works with multiplication. The last property that I would like for us to discuss is the commutative property. The big idea with the commutative property is just that you're commuting, you're moving the numbers. So what this property says is that A plus B plus C, and again that means any number plus any number plus any number, is equal to C plus B plus A. If you notice, both sides contain the same numbers. Both sides involve addition only, but the order has changed. what this property is saying is does not matter about the order of the numbers. So you can move the numbers, you're still going to get the same value. And that applies with addition or multiplication. So let's use multiplication this time. This time we're going to do 2 times 3 times 4. So C is 4, A is 2, B is 3. This is all multiplication, so order of operations says you're going to go left from right. 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 4. This side is 24. Now, the commutative property says that it does not matter about the order of the numbers. We can still multiply and get 24. So 4 times 2 is 8, and then 8 times 3 is, in fact, 24. So as you can see, moving the numbers does not affect the value. Both expressions are, in fact, equal.